Good morning. Violence on the rise. The Pentagon releases its report on the insurgency in Iraq as U.S. commanders sent reinforcements into a troubled region. Lost and found. An 8-year-old boy lost in the Colorado wilderness without food and water for 4 days turns up alive. And farewell friend. She's been a staple of America's mornings for more than 15 years, asking the tough questions.
You have not leveled about your knowledge of Iran-Contra.
Comforting the nation in difficult times.
Help me, please, Katie.
And dazzling us all with her unsurpassed grace, wit, and charm.
Look what I'm making Leo and Lodi do.
Now, after more than 15,000 interviews, millions of laughs, and countless cups of coffee, Katie's saying goodbye today, Wednesday, May 31st, 2006.
From NBC News, this is a special edition of Today with Katie Couric and Matt Lauer.
And good morning and welcome to Today on a very special Wednesday morning. I'm Matt Lauer, and for one final time, I'm going to turn to my right and say good morning to my friend and colleague, Katie Couric. Last day, how you feeling?
Oh, gosh, I'm feeling happy and sad and completely out of control, and you know how much I like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you, a control freak? Yeah. Let me just get this out of the way right now. Those aren't for you, those are for me. Right. Coming up, Katie, it's gonna feel like an episode of This Is Your Life, minus Ralph Edwards, obviously. This morning we're gonna look back at an amazing 15 years here on Today, the highs and the lows and everything in between, and of course, the hair. We will talk about that.
Only if I can talk about yours.
That's okay. There's not much to talk about. And if Katie, I think you people at home know, if she has one true love, aside from her family, of course, it's music. We're going to celebrate this farewell with performances from Tony Bennett, Martina McBride, Trisha Yearwood, Idina Menzel, and the cast of the Broadway hit Jersey Boys. And we also have some surprises in store that you won't want to miss. So stay tuned, batten down the hatches.
You know me, it's hard to keep surprises from me.
Do you
but
already
I think
know all these things?
Well, you know, sometimes
You've been
they email
dabbling in the
staff and they think I'm not on the list.
I can't believe they filled the position of CIA chief without you.
But
anyway,
I think there are plenty of surprises in store, and I'm really looking forward to all of it.
As are we. It'll be a fun morning. Before we get started, though, let's swing over to the news desk and say good morning to Ann, who has the headlines of the morning. Ann?
All right. Thanks a lot, Matt and Katie. It's going to be a great day. We're all excited for you. We begin, however, with a number of very serious developments in Iraq. A bombing this morning killed at least 5 police officers in Mosul. Attacks on Tuesday killed 54 people and wounded more than 100. The Pentagon predicts continued attacks by insurgents into next year, and 1,500 U.S. Army troops are being deployed from Kuwait to Anbar province, where many of the attacks have been taking place. Meantime, CBS correspondent Kimberly Dozier, wounded in a bombing that killed her cameraman and soundman on Monday, is still in critical but stable condition today in Germany. Her family arrived in Germany this morning. The death toll from Saturday's earthquake in Indonesia has jumped to more than 5,800 people. More aid is arriving today. Twice-convicted sniper John Allen Muhammad was found guilty on Tuesday of killing 6 people in Maryland. He was already under a death sentence for a murder in Virginia. A patient being transported in a medical helicopter was killed when the helicopter crashed onto a golf course in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday. 3 other people were hurt. Toyota is recalling almost 1 million vehicles worldwide, including about 170,000 Prius cars in the U.S., to replace faulty parts that could cause drivers to lose control. And an amazing story from Colorado this morning, where a young boy who vanished in the wilderness over the weekend was found alive on Tuesday. NBC's Jennifer London has this story.
Evan Thompson is just 8 years old, but he survived what many might not. 4 days alone in the rugged Rocky Mountains west of Colorado Springs.
He was found in Hole in the Rock Gulch, and he is completely fine, uninjured.
The boy, who has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, disappeared during a family camping trip on Saturday.
We never gave up hope, and we kept going.
Rescuers began following an unusual clue: Spider-Man footprints left behind from the sneakers Evan was wearing. It wasn't much, but it was enough.
We are overjoyed, overwhelmed to have Evan safe and back with us in our arms and our hearts.
Tired, hungry, and happy to be alive.
How you feeling?
Good.
Jennifer London, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Terrific. He was found. It is now 7:05. Let's go back to Katie, Matt, and Al.
It's a darling little boy and with a happy ending, thank goodness. Thanks, Ann.
Dedicated work of those rescuers.
Yeah.
All right, let's get our first check of the weather this morning from Mr. Roker.
It's very strange. It really is. And also, we went big change. We won't hear Fred Facey say your name anymore.
I know.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Are you kidding? I think they already took down my picture.
No, we got plenty of them out there. Don't worry. Don't worry. Let's take a look, show you what's going on, and show you that for today, we've got a lot of wet weather, unfortunately, continuing for our friends in Texas, down in Houston. Flood warnings for parts of Texas on into the morning and early afternoon hours. Rainfall amounts, some areas picking up as much as 2 inches of rain before it's all over, from Corpus Christi all the way into Houston. That's what's going on around the country. Here's what's happening in your neck of the woods.
All right, current temperature is 72 degrees. Dew points, they're above 60, so it is feeling very muggy again as you head out the door. Lots of 60s, lots of 70s, so it is really warm. And I think another day of the heat before we start to see things closer to average for the remainder of the week. Chance of a shower or thunderstorm really at any point today, but better chances later on into the afternoon. Some storms may be strong or severe. There's your boater's forecast for today. Highs in the upper 80s.
Your latest weather, Matt.
All right, Al, and to our top story this morning, which is Katie. It's been an incredible ride. As we've said, we've got a great celebration planned this morning. But we begin with a look back at some of the highlights of your 15 memorable years right here on Today.
Hello.
Good morning, Katie. It's Rod.
Oh, Jack, do you mind calling me back in 15 minutes?
Making my way downtown. Hi, Jack. Walking fast, faces pass, and I'm homebound.
Okay. Give hope to women all across America. I'll be back.
Just another manic Monday.
I'm really usually much more organized.
I don't think I've come in a day where I haven't seen her in here no later than 6:45, 6:50. I mean, it's
And yet, 5 of 7, she walks through that little gap in the studio back there, and the light goes on, and the theme music starts, and boom.
Good morning. Shocking.
She's had a wide range of experience before she ever even got to this gig.
Catherine Couric, CNN Election Watch, Dallas.
The president of CNN instructed everyone there to never let me on the air again. I just refused to let the turkeys get me down.
Today, a typical Sunday in Dayton, Broward County.
Catherine Couric, News 4, Rockville.
NBC's Catherine Couric is at the Pentagon tonight.
U.S. forces are desperately seeking Noriega.
My first day on the job, I was 5 months pregnant, so I got up, threw up, and came to work. When the Today Show theme started playing and I saw, Brian Gumbel and Catherine Couric, I started kidding around almost immediately, and I think that broke the ice.
I still can't decide whether I'm Catherine or Katie.
No. One more time, Alex.
Catherine Couric.
Thank you very much.
There you go. Some Democrats say that you have not leveled about your knowledge of Iran-Contra.
Glad you asked that, and I knew you would.
I think one of the interviews that got me some attention early on in my career was when I was at the White House interviewing Barbara Bush for the 200th anniversary of the White House. I thought the president was out of town and that I wouldn't have to even worry about that. And suddenly, I'm like, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. And then he walks in.
Is this live?
No, fortunately, we're on live television,
Well,
so please
but
say whatever you'd like.
No, but what I say is...
And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm the leader of the free world here. And I haven't really thought of a question to ask him.
Let me ask you, if I could, Mr. President, about...
So I proceeded to do, I think, a 19-minute and 38-second interview, but who's counting?
What time do we break for the hour here?
With Mrs. Bush waiting patiently on the sidelines. I had such serious adrenaline pumping during that interview, and I was so nervous and so stoked and so like, oh. And, my mind was,
I told you I was going to be here for 30 seconds.
Well, I know, but aren't I great? I'm one of these less contentious reporters who can convince you to stick around and talk with me because I'm so easy.
I know what one candidate said about you. Blame it on Katie Couric, and I don't want to get in a fight with you.
No, that was, I was trying to prove my manhood. Some people are left with the impression that you're vindictive, that you're ruthless, a sore loser, and they don't feel comfortable with that.
Katie,
Katie.
You're wiggling out of this, Mr. Secretary General.
It is not true that both of us are equally at fault.
Some people think from your comments that you've made of late that you're being an apologist for the tobacco industry.
I think
somehow they have you
only people like
in their
you,
pocket.
only people like you in the media.
Is this a big ego trip for you?
You have this sense when you're watching Katie do a hard interview. Any question that needs to be asked will be asked.
I feel my job is not only to ask questions, but to get answers. At some point, will you ever answer the question?
I've covered that about 100 times.
Well, can you do it again this morning for us? Well, so you don't want to answer the question?
Well, I've answered the question, Ms. Kirk.
Do you believe that women in this country should have the right to an abortion?
I agree with my husband that we should try to reduce the number of abortions.
Some people think Al Gore is going to eat you alive in a debate.
I'm biting my tongue.
Sometimes they were surprised when it was wham, right between the eyes.
Who told you that?
Who told you?
I'd like to repeat something you said in 1985, quote, I think the Jewish people have been a blight and they probably deserve to go into the ash bin of history.
A lot of things are taken out of context and I'm not opposed to
That's
the Jewish
a direct
people.
quote, Mr. Duke. The headline reads, we are not safe. Then, politics and resistance to change make swift action on 9/11 panel's advice unlikely. How can these two headlines coexist when American lives are at stake? When I look at the list of people I've interviewed, kings, queens, and presidents, and prime ministers, and politicians, it's really quite amazing and astounding to me. We want to thank you, and we've got some fun footage to show as we head to a commercial break.
You promised me you wouldn't show that.
Let's dance, let's shout, shake your body down to the ground. Let's dance, let's shout, shake your body down to the ground. Let's dance, let's shout, shake your body down to the ground. Let's dance, let's shout, shake your body down to the ground.
This is going to come as a shock to a lot of people, but I like to sing. All my bags are packed. I'm ready to go.
If anybody, even by mistake, mentions a song title, it's coming out.
On the day that you were born, the angels got together.
She goes at it with a gusto and a fierceness.
My singing debut, actually, was with Darlene Love.
That's where it is.
That, to me, was one of the greatest moments of my life. How sad is that? We sang backup for Stevie Wonder, and it was so horrific.
Not backup like there were other people singing also. It was Stevie Wonder on piano and 3 microphones and us.
I'm hoping, out of its own self-respect, to take this destructive.
God love her, because she goes for it.
In New Orleans, rescuers are still racing to pluck stranded survivors from rooftops, and a grim message from President Bush, quote, this recovery will take years. Good morning, I'm Katie Couric in New Orleans, wearing waders for the first time in my life to deal with all the floodwaters that are still quite high in several areas. I felt it was really important to go and see firsthand what had happened so I could better understand the story.
Help me, please, Katie. Please.
Len found his true shelter from the storm last night in the arms of his family.
I love you. I love you too, man.
We're joined today here in Vatican City by Katie Couric. Katie, good morning.
Brian, good to see you. The thunderous applause that we're hearing from St. Peter's Square, which I find, gentlemen, so moving. Fierce fighting in Iraq. 6 U.S. soldiers have been wounded. Daily attacks against U.S. forces 3 more U.S. soldiers were wounded in separate blasts in Iraq today. Ace in the hole. After one of the most intensive manhunts in history, a haggard Saddam Hussein is captured alive. A plane has just crashed into the World Trade Center here in New York City. It happened just a few moments ago, apparently.
Second airplane, a 727 just ran into the building. Oh, my.
This morning, less than 24 hours later, the heart of commerce and the signature of the New York skyline is no more. The shell of the South Tower, tower number 2, that was hit by the second plane. The peripheral damage is amazing. I don't think people even appreciate the scope of this.
United Flight 93 was the 4th plane to be hijacked on September 11th. It crashed in a Pennsylvania field.
Alice, Liz, and Lisa visited the memorial that has sprung up a quarter of a mile from the crash site.